We have a tradition going nowadays in the RPG hobby. A tradition of labeling certain behaviors that are less than awesome at the table, according to most folks, and labeling the people who behave that way as that guy. And with the magic of YouTube and the influencing power of elders in the community who can broadcast their ideas, well, that tradition is even stronger. I think there are new flavors of that guy that are being born every day thanks to people making videos complaining about those behaviors. And this week I found out that I am a heretic. In what way am I that guy? Well, in my past I have been the guy that said, please, can we just make our characters with the published source books? Can you pick your character from something that's in here? This all started last week when I watched WebDM's video about problem DMs.
A cousin to the Rules As Written DM is the only official books DM.
Oh yes, only official, no homebrew whatsoever.
No homebrew, no UA,
Yeah.
no whatever. And now this is another one where it's like a style. Then you might not be with the right DM.
Yep, that's me. Yours truly has been in the past a Mr. No Homebrew at my D&D table type of fella. I was willing to shrug my shoulders, maybe this wasn't something that everybody was so resentful of. But then I spotted this other video by XP to level 3, and in it, the young gentleman made a caricature of my habits in D&D. And it led me to thinking, maybe there really is something going on here. Am I not with the times? And with that, I'd like to give you the reasons why I chose to kind of wall off all that content and stick to what was in the book. And now, time for the disclaimer moment. Disclaimer number 1, I think that it's entirely up to you, to your friends, and ultimately to your game mastering style if you want to use homebrew content, whether you want to welcome third-party content and things that your players have made up and bring them into the rules of the game. I'm not suggesting that this is the best way to do it, is to stick to rules as written, just that it's a way that I chose and that suited me well at the time that I chose it. For 2, I absolutely recognize that there are some places in the PHB where there are some things that just aren't very good. The Ranger, for example. And Unearthed Arcana has brought things a long way towards being a lot more fun to play and shoulder to shoulder with the other options that are in the book. With that said, I tend to choose class and level base games because I appreciate that sort of narrowing of genre that they can give, that when we play Dungeons and Dragons, there's a specific kind of high fantasy. And I know that lots of people play RPGs with the thought in mind that you can make sort of any character in any game and you can kind of hammer at the rules to get them to look like what the vision in your mind is. And I've come from an older school where we would even just roll 3d6 down the line for strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, and we would let the dice sort of tell us what kind of character we were playing. So sometimes maybe I'm looking at this from an angle where if the PHB says what I can play, then that's what I can play.
Future's now, old man.
But notwithstanding how old and crusty I may or may not be in the eyes of these folks making 5e D&D content, I will tell you that the era in which that was the rule at my table was the 3.x and Pathfinder era, and the beginnings of 5th edition when I was running a home game on a weekly basis for 5e. And here's my reasoning. Reason number 1 why I didn't like homebrew content, why I wanted to rule it out, was on the basis of fairness. That if one player comes to me and I say, yes, I think this looks great, looking at some third-party content, looking at something that they've scribbled in a notebook themselves, or the latest Unearthed Arcana playtest, and I say, yeah, that looks great, let's go with it. And then another player comes another week, another time, and I say no. Or the opposite, I said no the first time and yes the second time. What is that received as in the eyes of the player? That's the other side of it, is how many people get input into the yes or no question? Is it me saying yes or no? What about when Bob feels like his ranger that he's been playing with the book, and maybe he's adapted to it and he feels like it's just fine, and now there's the new Unearthed Arcana Ranger, which is coming into the mix and is going to completely outshine his guy. So I think you can see that having that policy of, we're just not going to think about it and we're going to try and pick stuff that is already out there, can lead to fewer arguments and maybe fewer hurt feelings. I will say that it's also my style as the game master that I tend to let the dice fall where they may. If a character shoots the Orc King in the neck and he bleeds out and the entire campaign takes an interesting turn based on a stroke of good luck, then I roll with it. And by the same token, if you drop your sword, be it magical or mundane, into a boiling lake of lava, it's gone. And if you happen to fall off a cliff to your death, your character dies, and then your character's death is not something that I'm really up for making into a group decision. It's how the dice rolled and the way that the fates decided. And that might be a little bit different than the present day culture of play. I want to uphold that aura of fairness for when times get great or times get rough for the characters. And if there's any kind of hint of unfairness, then that might be a problem. The second side of the coin is the old unexpected imbalances objection to third-party content and to homebrews and so on. Part of this is that unexpected combinations of things from one third-party publisher and another third-party publisher, which might be writing years later and wasn't aware of what the other one had made, create a certain alchemy of play. It may not even be a power gaming question that one player was really trying to seek the greatest advantage for themselves. It might be that two separate players just found an unexpectedly amazing combination of stuff. And yes, you can look at this as it's the game master's responsibility to kind of rebalance all the enemies and possibly to intervene and depower the abilities that people have brought into the game and change how they're being rolled. That the game master could even just fudge die rolls behind the screen in order to correct the imbalance. And this might just go back to my preference for appearing to be fair. Because what if I tell you that 2d6 is too much and that it's going to have to be 1d10 from now on? Now it's this sort of back and forth discussion where we both need to agree about it. That's fine as a way of looking at the game, and even that kind of discussion is something which I'm perfectly happy to have, in the sense that I feel like I can have a mature discussion with my players and agree in the same way that we can agree about which toppings to order on the pizza for the game. But I also feel like those discussions take time. It takes time to come to that kind of consensus, and it's time that we could be playing in and seeing more of the tale unfold. I tend to play on a short schedule. I really don't know when someone's work schedule is going to change, when they're going to move to midnights, or when someone's going to move out of town because of a new job opportunity, or a new baby's going to be born. And I would like to see more of the game unfold and really finish campaigns. And for my part, I kind of look at this sort of thing as perhaps a distraction from the part of play that I really enjoy. And the unexpected imbalances don't really end with just game balance. There can be unexpected story imbalances, spotlight grabbing. Once the spotlight has been grabbed, perhaps accidentally, not just because someone is a diva, that's time lost for the other characters, and it's another place where the GM needs to really put his hand on the finger of fate, or is expected to, in order to correct these unexpected moments. Just to give you an idea of something which does pull spotlight to a particular character and is already in the book, is the Warlock Patron. The character can, basically anytime they like, converse with an NPC that's just a resource for having some role-playing, doing some theatrics, and deepening the characterization of their particular character. And that's not something which is available to all the other players. And it's absolutely the case that there can be other sorts of powers that third-party content and Unearthed Arcanas and so on can bring to the table. Something like a magic intelligent sword can be a part of some of the classes that I've seen. And bringing all that into the game does look like it could be pretty exciting, but it also looks like it could be the sort of thing which could blindside me. As the game master, I might not have anticipated these strange magnetic pullings of the camera's eye toward the character until it might be too late. So with that in mind, I just had a policy of until I'm really comfortable with it at the start of the campaign, maybe we'll bring it in. But in the middle of the campaign, if you walk up to me with a new idea for something like this, the answer is just going to be no. The third reason that I had in mind, and I think that it's perhaps the most commonly held opinion among game masters, is that there just aren't certain things in my campaign world that, since I'm responsible for creating an exciting setting of play, something which is transportative, it's like falling through the wardrobe into Narnia, then there's some prerogative on my part to just say no to certain things. And that's just for aesthetic reasons for building a legendarium. Now, of course, the D&D Player's Handbook is, only compatible with certain legendaria. But I knew that when we chose to play D&D. There are tons of other RPGs, at least in my mind, that we could pick if we wanted a more flexible legendarium. And the last reason why I'm just not really all about this stuff is because some of it's not very good. And I mean that in the sense of it's not very effective compared to the options in the Player's Handbook. Now, I know you may be thinking you want to pick this because it's for flavor reasons, but in my mind, I want you to have a satisfying experience of having a character that can realize goals and realize them at a pace similar to the other characters so that you don't feel left behind as the tale unfolds. And I've often seen that people who look to all this third-party content out there and maybe are brainstorming different abilities in their notebook and so on, one of the things that's further from their mind is having those abilities be balanced. And I mean balanced in the sense of actually worthwhile and not coming at a really severe opportunity cost. I'm trying to look out for you here. And on the other side of the coin, when these options that you selected from outside of the core rules turn out to be pretty low powered and maybe not particularly great, I may be called in to change the rules for them, to put my hand on the finger of fate and fudge things and create situations that kind of artificially favor these new abilities. And that plays back into that idea of showing favoritism, kind of leaving behind some of the impartiality that I really enjoy holding on to as a game master. And part of the reason that I like that is because I like to roleplay the NPCs. I like to think that the NPCs that I'm playing in the game have kind of certain roles and goals and objectives. Sometimes I am so excited to play Billy Zane in Titanic and really enjoy my villainous character. And I feel like the politics of bringing to the table how to rebalance these options, which are not particularly well play tested, that can be coming in from different directions, is the sort of thing that can pull me out of that world building character and that world building mindset where I feel like I'm at my best. And for me, that's the biggest reason why I tended to have this rule in the past when I ran D&D of no, we're not going to do any homebrew rules or any third-party content, which I have not pre-selected for the campaign. And the reason is because I want to give you me at my best as a game master. I do believe in the idea that the game master's responsibility is to look to everyone having a great time at the game, including himself. I also think that part of that is being at your best, being the happiest you can be with the game that you're playing so that you can be at ease and you can be more creative, more fluid, and keep the game moving at a pace which lets people see a very fun tale before new babies are born and people move away and schedules change. Now, I know that other groups might have more time on their hands, or that urging towards progress in the campaign, which I tend to seek and naturally earn progress, mind you. I really like to see characters start at level 1. All that might not be as high of a priority for other folks. But play your own way. Play to your strengths. And this is where I feel sort of unsettled by these memes out there in the D&D world. I am starting to look at them and wonder if this YouTube era, where before you ever play, you've gotten all this indoctrination from out there in the internet, if this is leading towards maybe a more homogenous culture of play. I think a big bonus, a big way to see other ways of playing, is to pick other RPGs. If you think the Ranger stinks in the player's handbook, well, let me tell you, there's some other games like Rollmaster and Hackmaster that have incredibly cool Rangers. And I'd love to talk to you about them here on the channel. So, if you enjoyed this video, if you feel like it's stuck up for another way of seeing the game, if it led to a greater heterodoxy in the RPG hobby where all sorts of diverse ideas and opinions have their day in court, then why don't you hit that like, why don't you hit that subscribe, share these videos around. Let's see if we can get to 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And for now, I wish you happy holidays. I am the Complex Games Apologist.